Now, why your work didn't fail you, your story did. This is a story, something we see every time. People keep saying the system has changed, things aren't the way they used to be, work isn't appreciated or rewarded. That's not true. The perception has always been where the reward was. Nothing has changed. It's just we still are being taught the old message that you go to college, get a job, do good work, it will be appreciated, and you will move up. But what has changed? That's a lie, right? That's always been a lie. But what has changed recently, what we'll just call it recently, what has changed is the distance between the work being done and the people who decide what matters. Right? The distance between you doing the work and the people who are deciding whether your work matters or not, translation, how much you get paid, that gap has gotten bigger. Not necessarily physically, not necessarily relationship-wise, but kind of a mixture of both of them. So today, I want to talk about how to help you not get lost, how to help your work that you're doing. I'm assuming you're doing good work, right? The work that you are doing to elevate it so it is seen so you can tell a better story. So, this is the Company of One podcast. I am Dale Callahan, and in this podcast, we help professionals take control of their income, right? That's why we work anyway. Take control of your income. It's not by chasing titles. It's not, but it's by understanding how value is created and translated in the real world. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So today specifically, I'm going to get to the issue of why your performance, the work you do, isn't necessarily translating and being appreciated in the way that you probably would like it to be. I have this conversation all the time, and I see a lot of you on LinkedIn talking about how frustrated you are with the fact that your work doesn't get appreciated, you're not being paid for what you should, etc., etc. So first of all, let me burst this bubble. I hope I'm bursting it for you, but perception. The perception is that it's changed. And I hear this all the time. It's not the way it used to be. Companies don't appreciate people the way they used to do. Jobs aren't the way they used to be. I think that's a lie. Things have always been this way. We have just been blinded to it by a system that we got used to. We were living the lie. I don't think companies were living the lie because companies were always out to make a profit and to serve customers and do the things companies do. And us as employees have been living the lie, thinking, okay, they're going to take care of me. They're going to help me get promoted. They're going to appreciate my work. All those things, right? There's many, many things that come out of that. But so let me back up and think about the perception. Think about Tesla and Edison in the battle for power, DC versus AC. Tesla was often technically superior. Now, they battled in some other things too, but Tesla was usually technically superior to Edison. Edison, or Edison's team. Edison understood, though, something that Tesla didn't. Audiences, investors, different kind of audience, institutions. Tesla knew how to tell a story so that people could repeat it. Edison did. Tesla assumed that people would understand his complex stuff and they would just see it and appreciate it for what it was. Never works. Never works. History doesn't reward the best work. Ever. It rewards the people who understand. Right? Okay, so that's the thing. And this isn't cynical. This isn't Dale being cynical and saying, oh, people don't care about anything. No, they do. Companies do want to reward good work. I say companies, but the people inside organizations want to reward good work. They want things that move the profit along and help cost and all those kind of things. This is just reality. And you and I are stuck in organizations so often, and we are feeling like we're not getting noticed for all the hard work we do and all the genius things we do. So here's the translation. Is the real breakdown is in translation. I'm sorry. So your ability to translate your ideas in a way that makes sense. So most of us professionals out there in the world, engineers, project managers, finance people, whatever we are, we measure ourselves by effort, by precision, by completeness, by competence, by analysis, all of these technical aspects of what we do. And it doesn't even have to be technical work, right? Somebody who types up letters, completeness, accuracy of grammar, all those kind of things, they don't matter. I mean, they do matter, but they're not the big thing. The boss, though, and when I say boss, I mean just in general. The higher up you go, they care more about outcome, but they care mostly about profit. So if you get really high, we're focused on profit and cost, almost always. There's exceptions, but almost always profit and cost. But also inside the belly, when middle management, it's risk, not only financial risks such as where the insurance companies kick in, but risk to them. How does your work make me as your boss look? That's risk. Risk of projects going bad, risk of things not happening on time, risk of cost overruns. So it's risk, it's timelines, and it's just generally outcomes. They don't need all the details. Their customer, though, so I'm thinking about middle management is worried about all those things. Their customer, middle management's customer, is usually the higher up. They're usually worried about something much closer to profit. Now, they might also be, worried about confidence and narrative and things like that, but profit, So there's a miscommunication issue that we have. So when it's kind of like when I am measuring X for how good my work is, and you are my boss, or you are the corporate CFO, whatever you are, and you're measuring Y. And I come into the meeting talking about X, and you now, this is algebra, people. There is a formula, a mathematical formula that translates your X, the value you output, into their Y, the dollars they measure. And if you don't start trying to formulate that and explain that, then you leave it up to them. And they don't know your work. They don't understand the technical detail. That's why they hired you. And they certainly are not in it. So translation. This is not manipulation. This is not manipulating numbers, telling a story that's a lie. This is translating it to tell the truth. Translation is, and the ability to translate is leadership. And oftentimes what turns a person into a great leader is their ability to translate ideas. So sometimes the people, all right, well, anyway, let's talk about customers for just a minute. Let me switch gears. Well, I'm not switching gears. Let's get drill down. The thing that we need to think about is who's our customer. I spend a lot of time with professionals talking about this because we oftentimes get it wrong. When we're talking about your customer, we're talking about the person who puts money into your bank account, the person who authorizes to get you paid, the person who may pay you directly, whatever it is. It's probably your boss. It's probably your boss's boss. It could be a coworker. Anybody who impacts pay coming into your pocket. It could be external customers. So most of us corporate people, if we list our customers kind of by importance, it's usually our boss's boss, maybe it's our peers. We may have 10 customers that we need to care about how they view our work. And they may come from different parts of the company. But they're the people who are impacted by our work. And also, if we fail, their voice speaks back into our pay raises, our keeping our job, all those kind of things. So when we talk about customers, that's what I mean. So it's your customer. You're the business. It's your customer. So I want you to be self-focused. Think about the money that goes into your bank account. Who influences that? And you might be saying, well, no, I'm trying to take care of the big company's customer. If you do this, if you take care of your customers, everything else works, right? Because the system is built. It's not perfect, but in every company it's built so if everybody does their job and up the food chain, pushes stuff up the food chain or out wherever they're going, the customers outside, the external customers satisfied, everybody wins. So you focusing on the person who pays you should win. So that's who your customers are. They are the ones who pay you and influence how you get paid. And I always tell people, think about it. You know, if you were an independent business, you were a plumber, right? The customer is the one that pulls out their wallet and gives you their credit card or their money, and it's the money that goes to you or to me. It's that money. So that's what we're looking at. So sometimes it's your boss, sometimes it's the project owner, sometimes it's a team. It's a team that your boss relies on. There's multiple people. It's always people, by the way. It's never a position. They have a name and they have a personality. That's important. I always think about it. They can increase your pay. They can limit your pay. They can justify your pay. They can make your pay irrelevant. They can make you go away. They're your customers, okay? Now, most of us don't have a clear view of who our customer is. Most people don't. They just don't know. I know that, not because I am reading tea leaves, because after talking to hundreds and thousands of people in corporate world and doing all kind of speaking events and just doing workshops, I just have seen it over and over. We get confused. So I'll just go ahead and say there's one thing that you should do is write down who are your customers. Get really super clear on who they are. So the mistakes that we often say is we define our customer based upon org charts, not the economics and money flow. Titles are not the key here. Sometimes we have bosses that have no power. So what we're looking for is influence. Usually it's the boss, but it's not always. So you don't need to impress everyone. Okay, that's not your job. Your job is to serve the people who affect your income. So we want to look at this as an income lens, if you will. Who provides input to those decisions about your income? Who would be asked if my value were more questions? I'm going to get into this more in a future podcast because this is such an issue, but it's your customer. Let's just stop for right now. So now let's talk about what they are actually measured on. Your boss, your customers are measured on things like deadline, budget, risk exposure, narrative, some narrative to their boss. And it doesn't matter. It's up to you to figure it out. How do you figure this out? You go talk to them. What do they care about? I usually ask the simple question is, what does winning, you want me to do this project? What does winning look like? I want my boss, the person who's basically paying the check for me to do this work. What's winning look like? What does success look like? If you hired somebody to come out and paint your house, that's kind of the questions they should be asking. What do you want it to look like? What color do you want it to be? Do you want this painted the same color as this? They're looking for what does success look like. You need to get clear on that. And sometimes we go, especially engineers, we go into things thinking the best engineered solution is the way they want to go, and that's oftentimes not that's not what they're looking for. You need to know that, right? So the question isn't what did I do, but it's how did this make their job better? How did it help them? Whatever better is for them. We won't even care what better is. That's up to you to figure out. So here's where it gets interesting. I think it gets kind of fun. Is you have to be a storyteller, right? And I don't mean you need to write a book or write a novel or fake things. We're not talking about that. But this is the company of one move, right? This is it's not marketing. It's not just about marketing. It's not about self-promotion. It's that your job is to take the facts of what you did, the technical whatever stuff you did, and turning it into meaning. What does it mean? Remember, I said that equation. They're measuring X. You're measuring X, they're measuring Y. There's an equation. You've got to do the math for them. You've got to paint the picture for them. So, for instance, you might not say, hey, I finished the analysis. You might say, this analysis removes the uncertainty from the next decision. You might not say, I built this system. You might say, this system prevents a failure scenario that we were talking about in these last few meetings. So not exaggeration, but just telling the story, which it's kind of like, why does it matter? People always talk about elevator pitches, and this is kind of the idea, saying something quickly that tells the story in their language. So it's framing. So, okay, let me give you some practical things to do here. Some just practical ways of doing this, of telling a better story. And the first one, so we're going to get practical, right? Hands-on. What can you do? The first one is identify the metric that matters to them. You have customers. First of all, I guess I should back up, and I said it already. The first one is to understand who your customers are. Who are your customers? Let's pick on the biggest one. Let's pick on your boss. If you feel like the boss or whoever you think speaks the most into what you do, we'll call that your boss. What matters to them? I like to ask the question, what does success look like? But think about also, and you can have candid conversations. What gets them praised? What gets them questioned? If they give me a project, sometimes I like to know, where are we going to get really questioned deeply about this? What are people worried about? So what shows up in their meetings? And this is the one I love, because your boss, your customer, goes to meetings invariably, and they get asked questions. What are they getting asked about your project? That's the kind of things you want to know. And you want to align your updates. Yes, updates. That's the words you say about this. You want to align those things to what they are doing and what they are saying. You want to be very clear of what's going on there. What they're going to say in their meeting, that is. That's what you want to talk about. So if it keeps coming up that they're worried about budget, align it to budget. If it keeps coming up to be where quality or safety or whatever, align it to those kind of things. So the second thing is to translate. That's really the third thing, knowing who your customer is, and number two, identifying that matters to them. But next is to translate every update one level up. So before you send something out, now I like to send things out in email that are bullet points, simple to read, simple to scan. What does this mean for time? What does it mean for risk? What does it mean for the next decision? What does it mean for profit? Some of those things don't make sense to you. Some of them will. There may be some other things. What are those little metrics that they care about? Say those things first. Lead with the lead, right? Lead with what matters to them. They don't care about the rest of the fluff. They just don't care. So next is make your boss look prepared. Now, this is a genius move that has it has a huge impact, and sometimes it is silent. It looks silent. In other words, you don't get great feedback from it. But when you make you don't get great feedback immediately, but you later find out how powerful it is. Make your boss look prepared. They're going to go to meetings. They're going to be talking about your work and Sam's work and Sally's work and Joe's work and everybody's work, right? They're going to be talking about these kind of things. You want to make their job super easy by giving them talking points, by giving them the story to tell. And now they can talk confidently about what you are doing. And it makes them look good. So can they answer? You want to think about, can they answer questions about your project confidently? Can they retell your work cleanly? And what are they going to get surprised about? You want to make sure they don't. I don't want my boss surprised about my work in a meeting. If they sound smart repeating your work, you win and they win. And again, they may not come back from that meeting patting you on the back immediately saying thank you for this. It may not have that immediate impact for you, but it's going to have a tangible impact over time if you constantly do that. The second thing, or the last thing here, the next thing, two more things. Keep it boring. Keep it clear. And I don't mean a boring story, but get out of your technical jargon. But think about, this matters because. If you can just say that, fill in the blank. This matters because. And you don't need, trust me, your boss doesn't need a lot of words to say. You don't need a lot of words to say. Nobody's going to read them. Nobody's going to remember them. This matters because. Just focus on that. Then the last thing I just want to point out is, I think this is point 6. I've lost my count, but here we go. Own the story early. Don't wait for review time. This is the thing I'm always hearing in corporate America. They're like, we can't have these conversations because, in 6 months or 2 months or in a month, we're going to be doing the annual reviews. That's a terrible time to really be talking. Nobody wants to talk about things during annual reviews, really. They talk about it like they do, but everybody hates doing them, including your boss. But your translation is delayed, and value gets denied when you do those kind of things. So all of this stuff, what we're talking about is you telling a better story. This is not you doing more work. That's not at all what we mean. This is not something else to add to your agenda. This is a skill to learn, yes, but it is not something that should take you a long time. And as you learn this skill and you learn to translate, as you learn what your boss cares about, your language, and you keep having these conversations, your language will naturally conform to tell the story. You'll become a natural storyteller, and it will take you less work. So it's not you need to go do more stuff to get seen and noticed. No, actually, you probably need to do less. Probably there's junk you are doing that nobody cares about. But that's another story. You need to do less. Also, you need to do a less explaining later, right? We always worry about the project when it ends. It's going to explain later. No. Explain it now. Walk them through why you're doing, why this matters, and hey, here's the success points we've gotten to, and when this happens, it's going to be great. Because you'll always, as you look around, one of the biggest complaints we see is everybody else gets promoted, but they're not technically the best. Let's go back to Edison and Tesla. The people who, it's not the louder person either. It's not the loudest person. It's the person who is the most clear, the simplest with a story. That is the person that wins. See you next week.